U.S. Open edition here. My name is Jeff Seeley, aka Cutmaker Jeff. We have a fantastic show this week. Two very special guests. Thrilled to have this week. First, the co-host of VSiN's Follow the Money, Mitch Moss. You see him every morning at 7 o'clock Eastern to 10 o'clock Eastern. Good friend of mine, good friend of the podcast. I'm a regular on their show. Mitch's first time on the pod. Mitch, thanks for coming on, buddy. Thrilled to have you here.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super stoked for this week. I can't wait to see what this golf course is going to look like on TV.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And guys, we're thrilled to have Erik Barnes here, PGA Tour professional. We are very fortunate in that Erik's it's fortunate for us, and not so much for Erik, but that Erik's rehabbing an injury right now and has a little time to spend with us here. We'll go through Erik's career here in a second, but Erik, thanks a ton for joining us, man. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to a great tournament this week.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. If I can't play, I might as well talk golf, huh?
There we go. But far more important than golf this week. So, Erik, you're an Indiana guy, and you live in Florida. So let's talk about the Colts quarterback situation real quick. What was your reaction when the Colts drafted Richardson? What's your like high bar and low bar? What are you expecting from this guy this year?
Yeah, I don't know. He's just got such a small sample size from when he was at Florida. It's really hard to determine. But nobody can dispute what a freak athlete he is, right? I mean, I really liked C.J. Stroud, but I knew there was very little chance of him falling into 4 had Indy not traded up. And it didn't, that's just not the Indy nature, really. And but as a bar is concerned for Anthony Richardson, I mean, this guy's I don't even know how high I could go. I mean, he's the most freak athlete anybody's ever seen at that position. So, like, who knows? Could he be the next Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, potentially, and maybe he could be a bust too. I don't know. I like, just from everything that I've read about him and what other people are saying about him, his teammates and his coaches, he seems like his head's on straight. He's a really good guy. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I've got high hopes.
Erik, one of the things that Mitch and I were talking about, we were trying to figure out a comp. We were thinking about like Fields in Chicago, and maybe maybe a higher ceiling but lower floor, right?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, obviously, I'm a diehard Colts fan, so like I would never say he's got a lower floor. But even though Justin Fields played really good at the back half of the year last year, but
yeah, I
mean, his ceiling's got to be way higher, in my opinion. But like I said, I'm very opinionated on the matter, and I'm really one-sided on it. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure Mitch can tell us what the odds makers are saying, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's in the 9-1 range to win the Rookie of the Year, which I think is a pretty decent number, honestly. In my head, I envision what that's going to look like because you know that they're going to run him a lot. So trying to stop Jonathan Taylor, who's going to be back, and him at the same time, and how creative they might be able to get, it could be tricky. They could do some stuff to catch defenses off guard for the first maybe a little bit of the season.
Right.
Well, the Lions going to have to hold up their end of the deal, which failed us last year. That was probably the biggest surprise of the whole year. So we got high hopes there. So, well, listen, let's talk a little golf, Erik. Congrats to you, man. I mean, what a huge, I guess maybe 18 months it's been for you. You obviously had success in the Korn Ferry last season, and you started the swing season here in September. You made 3 cuts, including a top 10 at the RSM just before Thanksgiving. Got a nice little payday there. Followed up with a strong showing at the Farmers in last January, T13 there. Dude, like you made the cut at the Honda Classic. I mean, when your putter's getting hot, bro, you were right there. I mean, talk to me a little bit about the ride. I mean, obviously you're 35 years old. You're probably in the prime of your career right now. But man, you are a testament to sticking with it and grinding it out and finally getting your break, man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Korn Ferry for me was just a long battle as far as long as I played that tour, and the ups and downs emotionally of am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Will I ever make it to the PGA Tour? Will I be stuck here forever? Those sorts of things. Those are just a mental battle. But from a physical standpoint, like I always felt like I was getting better, and I always felt like every year that went by, I was learning more. I was better. My golf game got better. I haven't lost distance. I've always kind of been up there pretty high, and driving distance which is a very, very important stat in professional golf nowadays. And And like you said, it's been a ride. I mean, I had a pretty good start to the PGA Tour year, not very consistent. Didn't make that many cuts, but a couple of cuts I did make. I felt like I had really good chances to kind of compete late, not necessarily win, but have high finishes. And the putter, like you said, is always just is the club that is always kind of the determining factor in how I play. If I putt really well, chances are I'm going to be in a really good position coming down the stretch on Sunday. If I don't, you could see me on the cut line or, finishing 40th or 50th or something in that range. So it's something that I know, and I'm putting a lot of effort into as I'm down currently.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your Corn Ferry class, man. I mean, looking at just the U.S. Open this week. I mean, there's a ton of guys who are in your class who are in this, but I've seen no less than 20 guys in your class play at least 2 PGA Tour events this season. So super strong class. I'm curious though. I saw a funny comment, interesting that Harry Higgs made. He said that, and I was thinking about this Corn Ferry class, and I was thinking about this conversation. Harry Higgs said, nobody's really friends out here. We're all just sort of acquaintances. It's sort of like an office. and it made me think about that. There are probably, there are a handful of guys who are obviously buddies on tour, but that's probably pretty true, no?
Oh, it's very true. And it's funny that it was kind of actually nice to hear somebody say that, because I always felt that way. Like, I didn't have that many really close buddies in any stage of professional golf, really. And it was kind of nice to hear somebody say that, because it always kind of felt a little cliquey, especially when I got to the PGA Tour. But for the most part, everybody's really nice, but they're about their business, right? Like, so I've got my buddies like my Tyler Duncans and Adam Shanks from Indiana, buddies of mine, Kevin Roy from Tampa. But it's not a long list by any means.
Yeah, I think that's part, to watch that at the RBC Canadian last week and how that closed. You don't get that every week, right, on tour. And that was something special, because it was, generations really since a Canadian won that event. And then you saw everybody back there from Canada who they were rooting on, Nick Taylor. And then it kind of flipped at the very end, where all of a sudden here's Hatton and everybody else from England and over there rooting on Tommy Fleetwood. But you don't obviously get that every single week. That was a Ryder Cup feel to it almost.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it felt like a major simply for the Canadians. Like, I don't think anybody on the planet that wasn't from England was not rooting for the Canadian. I mean, let's just be honest. And Nick is like the nicest guy ever. Like, he's hard to root against to begin with. But like, I mean, I felt like I cared more about this PGA Tour event as I did coming down the stretch when Brooks won the PGA. And I'm not saying that it wasn't a bigger tournament to win. It's just like, a Canadian hasn't won it in 69 years, and then he's going into a playoff with a guy who hasn't won on the PGA Tour, and he probably should have a handful of times. So it was really awesome, especially after all this live stuff kind of just took place. Like, the amount of eyes that were on the PGA Tour that Sunday were incredible.
No, there's no doubt. And Eric, I don't want to belabor the whole live PGA thing. We've been talked about ad nauseum, but I'm just from your perspective, man, because I feel like the biggest implication for people on this is guys like you, right? Guys who are, you're a good player, you're a PGA professional, you're in the, you're in the group with 90% of folks. There's the Scotties, the Rorys, whoever, who are gonna get paid whatever. But I mean, you mentioned the guys you're friends with, Duncan, Shank, those guys. You're in a group with all these guys. What's the kind of mindset? Is it just, well, we're going to wait and see and figure all this out? Or I'm sure there's probably a lot of confusion and just like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it's tough. And especially because I wasn't at the player meeting, but I spoke to 3 or 4 players about it and tried to get a vibe of what's going on. But to be honest, no one really actually, I mean, I know they told everybody that nobody knew anything. It's true. Like, nobody in my circle knew anything. And it's just hard to really form an opinion. Eric Cole said it best. I talked to Eric Cole, who's playing the U.S. Open this week, having a great year. Had a good week. Very strong Sunday at the Canadian Open. And he just said, I'm waiting to form an opinion, because right now we haven't learned anything. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but in the player meeting, nothing was really talked about, right? I mean, people were yelling at Jay and Rory, and everybody was yelling back and forth, but like, nothing was really said. And we don't have any concrete info yet that anybody can really go off of. So it's kind of more, for me, it's a wait and see, especially not being out there on, a weekly basis right now.
I thought the funniest quote was after his interview today, Brooks said, "I'll see you guys next week at the Travelers."
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about you posted this on Twitter and you played about this. Tell us what the Wolf Snake Cup is. I want to hear about this. This looks really cool. Tell us about the Wolf Snake Cup, kind of the background of this, and who all plays in it, and how this thing came about.
Yeah, so we lived in Birmingham, Alabama, for a short period of time, just 1 year. Something we thought at the time we wanted to try and see if my family enjoyed it. And then it turned out it wasn't necessarily Birmingham is a phenomenal city, but it wasn't necessarily the best fit for my family. And I'm on the road a lot. So that was what was important. And we ended up moving back to Florida. But Jeff Curl, who played Korn Ferry, plenty of PGA Tour events in his career, who doesn't play anymore, started this Ryder Cup format for all the pros that are members at Greystone in Birmingham. And the list is awesome. Like the players in Birmingham, there's what, 4 guys on the PGA Tour, 3 or 4 guys on the PGA Tour that are living in Birmingham, and another 2 or 3 that are on the Korn Ferry Tour. And he just put together this Ryder Cup format, Team Wolf, Team Snake, where Team Wolf is captained by Jeff Curl, and Team Snake is captained by Sepp Straka. And obviously a household name at this point, especially in the golf. And they just literally pick players. It's Robbie Shelton, it's Trey Mullinax, it's me, it's Lee Hodges, it's a great list, right? And it's literally just a 2-day Ryder Cup format deal where you play 3 or 4 matches. And I love to say this because I was on Team Wolf, Jeff Curl's team, but Team Wolf is 3-0, and Sepp is he's won some PGA Tour events, but he's never won the Wolf Snake Cup.
Probably no gambling going on in that tournament either.
No, not at all.
That's no trash talking either.
That is definitely going on. There's a lot of that. A lot of beer being drank, and it's just a really good time. And it's fun. It's kind of gained some momentum in the club, and people come out and watch, and it's kind of a fun deal.
And so, Erik, let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Open. Obviously, you played in the U.S. Open last year, man. I was looking at this. Obviously, you missed it, but you missed the cut by a shot. And interestingly enough, you probably know this, but you actually gained just under a stroke on the field and still missed the cut, which is, I'm not trying to pour salt in the wound, but man, that's like razor thin. Like, what stood out to you the most about the U.S. Open experience in general in 2022? Obviously, your first time. What was if one thing you took from it? You're like, okay, I learned this. What was the biggest thing if you were playing it again this year?
Yeah, so from a mental perspective, by far the biggest thing I learned is that I can compete with the best players in the world, because I'll be honest, I did not even play that good in the U.S. Open. At least I felt like I didn't play that good. And then I missed the cut by, I know you said 1 shot, but it was like 2 people. And this is like the only event on tour other than the Masters where it's not 65 in ties. It's 60 in ties.
Right.
Like if it's a normal PGA Tour event of 65 in ties, I make the cut. But anyway, that was the biggest thing that I learned, because I didn't even feel like I played that great. But technically, the U.S. Open is just another animal, right? Like, it wasn't even a U.S. Open where over par or even par wins the cut or wins the tournament. It's, it was like, what, 600, 700, something like that. But, like, you just have all the facets of your game have to be just going. Like, you can do little things and miss in the right places and get away, and bogey doesn't kill you in the U.S. Open by any means. But, like, you're just, like, 1 swing away from double bogey at all times. Like, and there's really not, like, trouble to hit it in. It's not like you're going to hit it out of bounds or you're going to hit it in the water. I mean, there's water on a few holes, but it's not like it's looming on every golf hole like where we play the Honda. But, like, it's just, if you don't drive in the fairway, it's hard to make par. Sometimes it's hard to make bogey, because if you hit it in the rough, it's hard to just get it back into a position where you have a chance of making a par. So it's just, and I saw some, I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous. We've got a 295-yard par 3 playing in a PGA Tour event. Like, I don't suspect them ever playing it from back there. I mean, if they do, I'd be shocked, but I haven't seen the hole, so that's a little hard. But I saw some video of the rough this week. It's nasty. It's U.S. Open rough. Yeah, man, like, honestly, it's just every part of your game kind of has to be on, and you have to be very mentally tough. And me missing it by last year, I mean, I missed a 7-footer on my 35th hole of the golf tournament. That would have made the cut. But I also made bogey on, like, my 31st hole of the golf tournament from the middle of the fairway with a pitching wedge in my hand. Like, hit it in the only place you can't hit it. Like, stupid stuff like that, right? But that's golf, and you learn. And next time I'm playing the U.S. Open, was hoping it was going to be this week, but maybe next year I'll be in the U.S. Open and I'll have played one and I'll be ready for the challenge.
Erik, I'm glad you brought that up about you got to be mentally tough, especially at the U.S. Open. And I will preface this by saying I'm terrible at golf. I love the game. I watch it every single weekend. I bet on it every single weekend. I've loved it for many, many years. I tried to take classes when I was in high school, but not enough kids signed up, so they bailed on it. I'm like, oh, Christ, okay, this sucks. Anyway, I could hit the ball straight when I was younger. My wife and I have picked it up this year to take lessons because we want to get better and play. But the part that I can never get over is when I'm on the course, I'm proud of like 3 shots the entire day for 18 holes, and I'm mentally very fragile when it comes to the golf course. I can't get over why shots are going left and right and spraying all over the place. As somebody who is at an elite level like you are and the best players in the world, like, how do you do that? How do you, like, I'm watching the event a couple of weeks ago when Victor Hovland eventually won, but twice on the back 9 that day on chip shots, he missed both of them. And the second time, you could tell by the body language, like this, he was very frustrated. He thought, oh no, here we go again. Like, how do you just move on from shot to shot or hole to hole when something just completely out of nowhere popped up and, you were up against it big time on the previous, hole or the previous shot?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the best players in the world can do. And that's why they're the best players in the world. I mean, yes, they hit it really good. Yes, their short game's good. Yes, they putt it good. But, like, there's 200 guys that have really good short games, hit it really good, and can putt it really well, right? So those guys, even though some of the guys like John Rahm or Justin Thomas or Jordan Spieth, like Tiger, they get really fiery, right? But it's like, and this is something I spoke to my sports psychologist about, is don't be afraid of getting mad. But, like, once you get mad, like, it's gone. It's over with. Like, let's just go focus on the next shot. And that's what they're very good at doing. Because, there's that old saying, you're only really one putt away from, it's just you're a putt away from making a par, right? Like, you can hit flub a chip to 15 feet, but if you make the putt, it's still 4. It's the same as chipping it to 2 feet, right? Or a foot.
Yeah.
So you just have to mentally stay in there as long as you can. And it's really hard in the U.S. Open, right? Because, I mean, it seems like nothing, once it starts going bad, it feels like nothing can go your way. And what people don't realize in the U.S. Open is how narrow some of the fairways are. And, like, the rough is so long just off the fairway that, like, you can hit a really good tee shot. It can take an awkward bounce and get 2 inches into the rough. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't get this ball in the green. So you have to just understand those things are going to happen, and you have to be prepared for them to happen. And when they do, you're mentally ready for them. If you're preparing and expecting bad breaks and bad things to happen at times, and they're going to happen and you can deal with them no matter what, you'll be just fine. Like my sports psychologist says all the time, he's like, if you can put in 100% focus on every shot and 100% acceptance of every result, how bad could it really be? So those are things that, we work on off the golf course and during our practice rounds, and just mentally preparing ourselves for disaster. And when they happen, hopefully you're prepared for it.
It's interesting. You talked about the rough, and everybody talks about it every year, but you made the point, Erik, and I think that's when I'm looking at my model, and I built out a lot of short game stuff in here, and I think that's frankly the most important thing. I'm curious your opinion, because it's just that, right? You're gonna miss some fairways. It's gonna happen. You're gonna miss some fairways, and you're not gonna be able to get out sometimes. So then it's just laying it up and being able to get up and down. Like, that's probably maybe the most important thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S. Open, short game is massive because, like, you could take a standard, straightforward chip shot when you're playing 2 or 3 inch rough that 90% of the tour players are going to get up and down, and that percentage drops probably to half, simply because of the lies and the amount of rough there is and the heaviness of the rough, density of the rough in the U.S. Open. So, yes, if you're in a U.S. Open, you want balls to end up in bunkers because what's happening out of a bunker. You got the ball sits up sometimes in high rough, it sits all the way down, and it's just completely different kind of golf shot, and then you get it sitting in the middle, and it's kind of a guess. So it's yeah. I mean, short game is massively important. Greens and reg is another massively important stat. Yeah. Which, I mean, guys that win golf tournaments, hit 75% of the greens or 80% of the greens in the course of a week. Maybe not a U.S. Open, but you're not hitting all of them. So short game, like you said, is right up there with as important as it gets.
Well, and I think there are going to be a lot more greens hit this week just because of the size of the greens. They're huge. So, right, it's got to be a good lag putter. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that come into play, but I think you hit it, right? It's really the overall game, all-around game. So knowing that, obviously, you know, we know who the top players in the world are. We know who the official world golf rankings are and so on. Who are some guys you got to maybe take an eye on this week that maybe are off the radar a little bit that you might think, you know, hell, one of the best things about golf is, right, we can bet make the cut, we can bet top 40, we can bet top 20, all kinds of different things. Yeah. Who are some guys maybe off the radar a little bit you got an eye on this week?
Yeah, I mean, like I got two really good buddies that are both playing really, really good right now. And they're not from California by any means. They're Midwest or Florida guys. But like Adam Schenk is playing really, really good right now. He's driving it as good as he can drive it. And he's got a great attitude. And he's just really smart on the golf course. Another one who is, to me, is one of the best players out of our class, Erik Cole. He knows exactly what his game is. I mean, he plays a draw just the same as me on almost every single shot. He doesn't ever worry about, you know, cutting it into a back right pin. If it's a back right pin, he's sitting in the middle of the green, right? And he knows what his game is, and he's a terrific putter. And that's another guy who is very mentally strong, and that's why he plays well. I mean, heck, the guy shot 63 on Sunday at in Canada, finished what, 5th or 6th or something. But like,
6,
yeah. I mean, he's been doing that. I mean, he's been playing really well. I mean, he almost won the Honda this year, lost in a playoff to was it Chris Kirk?
Yeah,
was it Kirk? Yeah, Chris Kirk, and he hit a terrific putt. It just lipped out. So like, the guy has been knocking on the doorstep from part of my rookie class, and Adam Schenk's been on the PGA Tour for 5 or 6 years, and he's really starting to play good right now. Could have won the Valspar, played really good at the PGA, and then like I said, he backdoored, you know, like a 7th or 8th finish a couple weeks ago. He's playing really good. So those are two guys I'd look for, not just because they're buddies of mine, but because they're actually playing really good.
I think I had Cole to speak to Cole. I mean, Cole's results: 6th at Canada, 24th Memorial, missed the cut, then 15th at the PGA, 23rd to Byron Nelson, 5th in Mexico, which was a bomber's track. I mean, you're right; he's playing phenomenal golf right now. And he grades out really well in my model. I mean, 12th in my model. I love Erik Cole this week. I love him as a bet.
And I can imagine he's a very good betting value. He's a relatively unknown guy. Unless you're really into the golf world. And like I said, Adam, he finished what? He tied Rory at Memorial. I think he finished like 6th. But like, yes, Erik Cole he's a guy that I play a lot of practice rounds with, and every single time I play with him, I was like, well, nothing's changed. You're hitting it good every day. You just keep doing it. How are you not winning? You know, stuff like that. So like, I'm really a big Erik Cole fan, not just because he's a good player, because he's a great human being. And I would not be shocked if he was up there on Sunday at all.
So I'm seeing Cole right now priced as high as 275 to 1, and Schenk is 425 to 1. And Jeff, you know what that means? You can probably find some really good prices on top 20, top 40 stuff for those two guys.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly. And even make the cut pricing, right? I mean, I think that's it. I think I'll be betting both those guys top 20, top 40 make the cut. I mean, that's you throw a couple bucks on them the outright win just in case they catch lightning in a bottle. But I think that's just it. The top 20, top 40 markets are perfect for guys like that. But to your point, Erik, you mentioned this earlier, the cut's going to be harder to make because it's top 60 in ties. It doesn't seem like a big deal. That's a big freaking deal.
It is unbelievable how many times on the PGA Tour you are riding that cut line, and it's always right around 65. It is unbelievable. It's never T55, 12 way or 20 ways. It's always freaking T55, 9 ways to like the next guy's T64 or T66 or T66. It's always right on that number. And when all of a sudden it goes from like 65 to 60 is a massive deal. Like I said, last year it cost me making the cut at the US Open.
Yeah. So I'm curious this, Erik. There was a famous golf bettor who came in and made a big bet this week on Rory over Brooks in a head-to-head matchup. And, not that you have any inside information to this or anything along those lines, but I'm curious because the narrative this week seems to be that You know, Brooks is now, I mean, he's an underdog against everybody at the top of the leaderboard matchups wise. And it's because the guys, you know, took a few weeks off. He's obviously enjoying watching his team's success in the playoffs and so on.
Hockey, yeah.
How big a deal do you think that is, not having played for a couple of weeks? And would you look at that and say, oh yeah, I'd make Rory a favorite because Brooks has been taking time off? Or, I mean, do you think there's anything to that, or do you think that's reading too much into it?
I mean, it's just a hard one because Rory could have won like the last 10 golf tournaments on the PGA Tour, and he just keeps having tough Sundays, right? Like, I think probably 90% of the population, when Rory was 2 back of who was leading by 2 going in the final. Yeah.
CT,
I mean,
yeah.
Nothing against CT Pan. CT Pan's a great guy, but I think 90% of the world is like, Rory's just going to win this golf tournament. And
well, Erik, he was 4-1. He was the favorite. He was only 4-1 to win. Yeah.
And then he ends up shooting even par, but he's been doing that. He's been doing that every single week. I mean, he did it at the Memorial. He backed up at the Memorial, which everybody backs up on Sunday, except for the phenomenal, you know, it seems like Scotty Scheffler shoots 65 every Sunday and has a chance to win every single time. But, like, you know, there's certain guys like Tiger who could literally take a month off and go win a U.S. Open, right? Whereas, like, I'm not that way. And there's a lot of guys not that way. Like, we're good on our second or third week on the road, right? That's why guys play 2 or 3 in a row. Because they usually, in the first week, they were at home, they took some days off, all those things. And then by week 2, they're feeling really good. And maybe they top 10 at week 3. That's kind of how it's always been for me and a lot of guys I know that play really well on the PGA Tour. But, like, then you've got those freak guys like Tiger and Brooks Koepka and the guys that, like, don't have to play every week. I would not even venture a guess who's going to win that head-to-head. Like, are we talking head-to-head like the first 2 rounds, or for the 4-week, for the total?
For the full tournament. But the funny thing is, Brooks, they made a huge dog. So now, like, you bet $100 on Brooks, you win 130. You got to bet like $140 just to win 100 on Rory now. So it's like he's a big underdog.
To me, the way they've been playing and the way Rory's been playing on Sunday, and if Rory, you're listening, sorry, like, you're phenomenal, but, like, I'm choosing Brooks just because that guy always closes golf tournaments. Brooks Koepka very, very rarely, except for Augusta, right? Like, very rarely in a major or a massively important golf tournament does Brooks come down to the last couple holes and make a bogey. It just doesn't happen. Like, the guy is just rock solid and comfortable in majors where nobody else is. So, like, I'm not choosing Rory over Brooks. I'm picking Brooks, even though he's a dog.
I'm with you on that as well. I mean, it comes down to, you know, when you're betting this is about numbers more than anything else. But also, I think your brain has to factor in with this stuff too, because, I mean, the Masters was only a couple of months ago. The PGA was last month. I vividly recall both those tournaments where I heard a lot of people not really giving Brooks that much of a chance. They wrote him off. His odds were huge at the Masters. He didn't win it. My God, his first 2 days were awesome, and he was in the mix.
Yeah.
Comes right back. I heard the same thing. Well, Brooks is not winning this tournament. I was lights out again, and he took it down for the 5th time. Like, he does that all the time. Rory, to me, it's been a long time since he's won one of these majors. And so it's like, Brooks basically as much as anybody on tour right now. I'm not there with Rory, as good as he is.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, right, like, this is kind of similar to what we saw out of Brooks like a few years ago when he felt like he was winning every single major, right? And he didn't, but it felt like it for a period of, 2 or 3 years? It felt like he was winning once or twice a year in majors. Like, this is kind of like how it was then, too. Like, he probably should have won the Masters, could have won the Masters. Then he wins the PGA. Like, it's starting to go. And let's not forget the guy battled injury for a while. I mean, I had a similar knee surgery, and it's brutal, man. Like, you got to learn to trust turning on that left knee again, right? So, like, it's taking him some time to come back, but, man, he looks like he's fully back. Like, I'm not betting against Brooks Koepka.
So, Erik, you mentioned his hot run he had several years ago. I made a bet. I bet the Westgate in Vegas put a number up. 7.5 wins, career majors for Koepka. I bet 10 grand on the over. So I've got until age 50. I still think it's a good bet. God, I'm so happy he's able to play in the majors. So I felt like when the whole live thing happened, I was dead and I was super upset. Now he comes back and I'm like, this is phenomenal. So it's been good. It's interesting though. You mentioned the Masters thing, and I'm really super curious to hear your take on this. How effing tilting is it to play behind some guy who's the human rain delay when you got a good rhythm going, you're cruising along, and someone's slow as shit in front of you, and you're just like, bro, what? Come on. And like, and obviously it's been well documented. I mean, even Rahm was tilted about it, but it tilted Brooks out of his mind. I'm a little bit worried that might be his Achilles heel. People might try to start slow playing him if they're playing in the end of a major or something. What's your thoughts on that in general? And does that bother you?
Oh, it bothers everybody, man. Like Tuesday afternoon, you're like either thrilled or you're not thrilled, depending when them pairings come out. And everybody knows everybody knows who the slow guys are, right? Like it's not like a shock. Like every once in a while you get a fast player that takes 2 minutes to hit a golf shot because it's important or something weird's going on. But like everybody knows historically who the fast players are and who the slow players are. We all know them. So I'm not going to name any names, but like it's brutal, man. Like if you see that guy in your pairing or you see that guy right in front of you, man, is it devastating? And I never even freaking look at who's in front of me because I don't need to add any issues to my brain. So like obviously I knew I'm playing with during the tournament, the Thursday, Friday, and if it's not fun, it's brutal. You just got to be. That's another like mentally tough thing you got to deal with because like you're just dreading playing. You know, there's guys nobody like. You know, certain guys don't like either. It's the same thing as playing with somebody you don't like. You just got to deal with it.
Is there a conversation that can be had, or is it just like you got to suck it up? You got to sit there. And
I mean, look, it's not going to change anything. And Brooks said it best. Like until we start giving guys shots, or stroking guys, like there's nothing that's going to change. Like the money is too big on the PGA Tour to find somebody $50,000 for slow play. Especially we don't ever talk about the slow play and the guy that finished 80th, right? We talk about slow play when it's final group of the majors, final 3, 4, 5 groups of the majors, and it's coming down the stretch and guys are trying to win, right? Like that's when we talk about slow play. It's not just in those groups too. It's the rest of the time. But until we start giving guys 2-shot penalties or a stroke penalty, like it's not changing anything. Like guys are still going to play slow. And to be honest, like having that conversation with somebody isn't going to change anything.
Well, it's interesting though, Eric. I'll tell you what, if an old school cranky ass game like baseball can figure it out with the pitch clock, maybe there's hope for golf that something can be done at some point too, right? I mean,
we have that. We have that. We have a shot clock. It's
just never
like
enforced.
No, it's like 50 seconds for the first player to hit off the tee, fairway, putt around the greens. And then it's like 45 seconds for every player after that. But you really, really don't run into any trouble until your group's put on the clock. So your group has to be like a hole and a half behind or out of position time-wise to be one warned, then put on the clock, and then individual timings start happening. So like you're already going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes into the round before that can even happen, right? So, like I said, unless guys start having the fear of like catching a shot penalty and losing a golf tournament, it's not really changing.
I'll tell you what, Eric, and my daughter plays competitive high-level junior golf, and boy, they drill it in, right? It's like boot camp. It's like, let's go, keep it moving. These kids are like sprinting from one hole to the next. They've got slow play drilled in their heads, and hopefully in the future that's the process. Because no one wants to play longer rounds, and you're right, no one wants to wait forever to hit their shot.
And junior golf is brutal. Junior golf is absolutely brutal, and college golf is brutal. High school golf is brutal. It's brutal. It's starting from the beginning. Like my kids both play in a junior golf league here in Manatee County called the Under Armour Junior Golf League. And I'm not kidding you. It will take 3 kids in 3 hours to play 9 holes walking. It is brutal. And my kids are not doing that. They're not taking 8 practice swings. They're not doing that. If they want to take a practice swing, go for it. But you better be ready to hit it. And that's how it is. Yep. And every year on the Korn Ferry Tour, when I was playing the Korn Ferry Tour, you see these 5 or 10 college guys come out, and there's always half of them that are just like molasses. It's brutal. It's just like junior golf to high school golf to college golf to amateur golf. It's just brutal. It's this brutal cycle. And until we start penalizing guys, stroke penalizing guys for slow play, it's not changing.
I hear you.
It's funny, by the way, as you're talking, I'm looking around trying to get some bets down, and I see a matchup that actually has Cole against Shank. That's one of the individual.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I'll get
the first round, by the way. First round.
How's it priced, Mitch?
Cole is minus 115.
Okay.
That's funny. What's Adam like? Plus 120?
He's in around even money.
Okay. Yeah. So Adam's the value bet. God, that'd be hard. I wouldn't bet it. I wouldn't know how to bet it. Like, I mean, it's a great bet because those are literally the two guys I pinpointed that you can look out for.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
how you
funny.
bet it. I'd have to see the golf course.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Erik. So you got to pick one of the guys at the top of the board. You got Rory, Rahm, Scotty Brooks. Who are you picking of those four?
Man, how do you not choose Scotty Scheffler? Like, I just don't know how you don't choose him. Like, I'm not choosing him, but that's who I just don't know how people don't choose Scotty Scheffler. The guy literally almost wins every single golf tournament, no matter where he's at. I'm going to choose Brooks.
Putter, right? It's the putter.
I'm going to choose Brooks.
It's really the putter. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm choosing Brooks. Like, he's a major animal. And like, I love the way he goes about it mentally in majors and how he likes the loud and he thinks golf's not a real sport. And like, he likes it when it's loud. It's more like a real sport. Like, I love that. And there's so much. I played PGA Tour events and I played in a major and I played in the Players. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Players, majors, I mean, they're different shows. They are like circuses. It is insane the amount of screaming and yelling and people running around and carts driving all over the place. It is obscene. It is not your normal PGA Tour event. And Brooks handles those things phenomenally. And I'm not betting against Brooks.
Well, listen, I hope that you are healthy and able to play in the Waste Management next year, because I'm going. If you're playing, I'm going. I went 2 years ago, and it was the only thing. I've been to a ton of golf tournaments, been to tons of tour championships, been all kinds of things. Nothing to me lives up. I've never been to the Masters, but nothing lives up to the freaking Waste Management. That is as advertised and as the most fun you could possibly have. It is phenomenal. And you talk about a party, like, you're yelling at players on the fairway and they're yelling back and everybody's gonna be, it is amazing. And now mind you, they've priced appropriately now. Like, we had like all-inclusive suite tickets on 18 and they were like $1,300 for one round.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
So
and you weren't even on 16.
No, I know. We were on 18. I know. It was salty, but I mean, I'd pay it again. I mean, worth every freaking dime. Absolute blast. And so, hopefully your rehab goes well and you can play that, man, because that is one you do never want to miss.
Yeah, that's one of the events on everybody's schedule. Like, for the most, like the new guys specifically, right? Like, a lot of those big names play. Obviously, some of them don't, just because it's a circus. But like, that's one of the tournaments every year that like all the new guys just want to get a taste of, right? To see what it's actually like, right? Yeah. That's how I was in the U.S. Open last year. I wanted to play a U.S. Open. Wanted to play the U.S. Open for the money, but to see how hard a U.S. Open really is, right? So like, same thing with the Waste Management. Like, you want to see how crazy it really is.
Yeah, what's wild about that is obviously this past year, same week as a Super Bowl, same location, and this is a very small sample size, but we were down there for 4 or 5 days and just taking Ubers around, and some of the locals who I happen to know there, have been friends with for a while, they didn't really, like, the first thing that came up would always be the Waste Management, just because it comes out every single year. And it's like, no, this is an absolute madhouse. There's going to be like 200,000 people there on Friday and Saturday, like each day. And they would talk about that, and they wouldn't even bring up the Super Bowl. And I'm like, is this like another planet I'm on right now? That's wild to me. I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I feel like those guys feel like they're more involved in what's going on. The spectators, they're so much closer, and like, you literally the players can hear you, right? Like on a football field, like, I guess you can kind of hear players, or in, major leagues or whatever, you can kind of hear players, but not like this. I mean, you got people chucking beers out on greens. I mean, like, they're in the event, right? Like, they're probably feel like they're inside the ropes. I can't imagine why they wouldn't like it.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Hopefully we get to see you there next year, man. It's awesome. Well, all right. Well, listen, I'm with you. I'm always Team Brooks. I'm on Brooks for this year. This year again. Mitch, who are you picking to win the Masters here this year? It's not the Masters, geez.
US Open I have a bet on Brooks, and this goes back to right around when he was winning the PGA and was still on the board at 22-1. So it's tough to win one major, let alone two, and go back to back. This guy's done it before, so I would be very thrilled if he takes it down. But I mean, what Erik said about Scheffler is spot on. I mean, if that guy figures out his putter, he'll win every event by 5 strokes. He's
a freak.
Right, So,
yeah.
That you hit the nail on the head. You're right, but that's kind of what I'm banking on is, I mean, I had Erik, I had a bet. This is a crazy bet. I had a $10,000 bet and I parlayed Scotty to win the Masters, to the Milwaukee Bucks to win the NBA championship, to the Boston Bruins to win the Stanley Cup. 10 grand to win 1.6 million.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, so the first leg was Scotty at the Masters. I'm like, he's a freaking lock. Are you kidding me? And then I'm just watching miss 6-footer after miss 6-footer after missed 8-footer after miss. And I'm like, this is because my plan was I'm going to win this and I can hedge all kinds of things. I can do all kinds of things later, still win a couple $100,000. I was fucked. I'm like, I was watching this first round. I'm like punching myself in the face. I'm like, dude, this is insane. He can't make these 5-footers. And it's the thing is, he's not going to tinker and change a lot of it. And I don't know. I mean, I just don't trust the putter right now. I mean, tee to green, the guy's a freaking robot, but I just don't trust the putter.
Yeah, but he still is up there on Sunday at Augusta, right? He's still always up there. It's a freaking joke. I mean, but I'll give you one name that you didn't give me the option of that I love. Yeah. I think, and I'm not saying he's going to win this week, but like I love Viktor Hovland. That guy to me,
I almost included him.
Machine. You didn't include him, otherwise I might have picked him. Like he to me, like yes, Scheffler's your obvious choice, right? Like most people are probably gonna pick him. He's the odds-on betting favorite, but like hard to pick against Brooks. And I love Hovland. Like that guy's golf game, like the way he hits it, the way he goes about it, his attitude, everything about him. Like that guy's, and he can get that putter rolling, man. Like if you'd have included him, that'd be a hard one for me. That's another guy I'd be looking toward.
I'm going to play a little more Hovland this week in my DraftKings. You talked me into it. That's
don't be yelling at me if it doesn't play out.
Hey, no, I mean you're spot on, and honestly, he's a guy I very seldom bet and very seldom play in my DraftKings stuff just because I still have this mental block of like 2 or 3 years ago when his short game was a disaster, right? Yeah. And he couldn't chip and he couldn't putt. I mean, elite ball striker, he couldn't chip and couldn't putt. But you're right, it's like dramatically improved. He's like a low-key solid putter now. It's funny. I talk to Mitch and Paul about this all the time. It reminds me a little bit of like Adam Scott. Adam Scott was such a horrible putter for so long. Adam Scott's gained like putting 6 of the last 7 tournaments, yet I don't know why he's not winning. I mean, Adam Scott's like a elite ball striker, no can putt, but Hovland's doing it. Adam Scott's not. Adam Scott finds some other reason to lose, I guess.
Yeah, I think Viktor Hovland's a low-key top 5 pick in almost every golf tournament, in my opinion.
Okay, I'll give you quickly 2 other names, and this would not be surprising because they're near the top anyway of the odds board. I mean, it seems like Xander is in the mix almost every single U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And it just feels like he has to win one at some point. But also, do we really want to rule out Cam Smith, another guy kind of forgotten after he went to live?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so for the most part. I mean, another really good player, right? And no one's talking about our reigning U.S. Open champion. It's hard to go back-to-back in the U.S. Open anyway, but like, yeah, Cam Smith, I mean, guy's a stud. I mean.
But you took short game, right? His short game's freaking elite.
Probably best pitcher and chipper of the golf ball on the planet, probably.
Well, and actually, Erik, that brings my last question, and we'll let you go. Speaking of that, a guy who's I know is not popular. I know he's not popular, but who has an absolutely elite short game and who's long odds this week, Patrick Reed. Like guy who can get up and down. I mean, look, I know nobody likes him, but man, the dude, he's good.
Yeah, he's very good. I mean, he won the Masters. I mean, the guy is really, really good. I wouldn't. Yeah, he's probably a really long shot, I imagine. I haven't seen his odds, but I don't know, man. Like I could see guys like Dustin and Brooks playing well because they were playing well on Live, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't really seen Patrick Reed playing well on Live. I mean, I'm not saying I've been following it religiously, but like I don't see him winning a whole lot. So I don't know. I'd probably lay off that one, but he is phenomenal short game, good putter.
I lied. I do want to talk about one more guy who's on tour because when I run my model, he is like, I think he is the best bet over 70-1. He's like 75-1. And this is a guy who gives 0 fucks. He's either going to win or miss the cut is Siwoo Kim. And I mean, he seems like he is so talented, and I mean, it's amazing how many times you see Siwoo near the top of the board. Have you ever played with him, or what are your thoughts on him in general?
I might have played him in the Corn Ferry Tour 8 years ago, but to be honest, I can't really remember. I have not even been around. I mean, I've been around him a lot, but like I haven't even been in close to him in a practice round or seen him play in so long. I know he's using kind of a long putter now, so I think maybe that's helping his game. I don't know. I honestly can't even speak on it because I haven't been around him much at all.
He's got 3 top 10s in his last 5 events. I mean, he's been playing really, really well, and he's a guy again who's just like he just seems to go for it. Like if he's in the hunt, he's aiming at pins, just trying to just going pin hunting, and it's fun to watch. So he's a guy I like kind of as a long shot this week. Well, yeah. Listen, guys, I really appreciate coming on with me here. Erik, tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter, and hopefully we'll see you back on the course here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I stink on Twitter, but the Twitter handle is ebarnesgolf10. I'm a lot better on Instagram, still not very good. I think it's just Erik Barnes Golf, ERIK with a K. Not a lot of good stuff going on right now. Like I said, I'm rehabbing a knee surgery I had about 10 or 11 weeks ago. So, but yeah, follow me, PGAtour.com, Erik Barnes profile, social media handles, however you want.
Awesome. We can find Mitch every morning and on VSiN at Mitch Moss Radio. We'll be on tomorrow morning talking PGA Tour. Mitch, thanks for coming on, buddy.
You bet, Erik. It was a pleasure, man. Outstanding stuff. Really time talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Mitch, nice to meet you as well. Jeff, same. Thanks so much. Great chatting with you guys.
Hey, we'll do it again. Appreciate it, guys.
Sounds good.